But things changed. The British, under Harold Wilson, had been the main drafters of Resolution 242. And it was Lord Clarendon who was one of the main drafters who said, we could have said, well, go back to the 1967 line. But I know the 67 line, and it's a rotten line. You couldn't have a worse line for a permanent international boundary. It's where the troops happened to be on a certain night in 1948. It's got no relation to the needs of the situation. Had we said you must go back to the 67 line, which would have resulted, if we had specified a retreat from all the occupied territories, we would have been wrong. This was the official British position, and it was the official position accepted by the Security Council. But then the UK became a member of the European Economic Communities. They had a change of government and a change of heart. And when it came to Yom Kippur, when again Israel defeated the Arabs, they changed their mind. And the result was the resolution on the 6th of November 1973, when Europe for the very first time developed a common policy in relation to Israel. And I think Europe's policy today was born, formally speaking, in that resolution on the 6th of November, which is almost exactly 40 years ago today, 1973. And Europe said three things. First of all, it's inadmissible to acquire land by force. Well, we all knew that. That's why it was illegal for Jordan to occupy the West Bank in 49. Israel must withdraw to the 49 armistice lines. And we will recognize the legitimate rights of the Palestinians in any defined peace solution in the Middle East. Now, there's no doubt that this resolution was issued in response to the threatened oil embargo and ongoing Palestinian terrorism. It reflected the fledgling United Europe's own growing sense of vulnerability in the face of pan-Arab nationalism. It was a time when no European state even dared to allow US cargo to land on its soil to defend Israel during the Yom Kippur War. The EEC's declaration, which now included Britain, explicitly stated Israel had to withdraw to the 49 armistice lines. This was completely new, and Britain, for the first time, or maybe not the first time, abandoned Israel. So from 73, we see Europe adopted a significant shift in relation to these issues. First of all, prior to 67 and prior to 73, there was no EU common policy, only individual states. The 49 lines were not borders. Israel had a right to negotiate with its neighbours to ensure secure and recognised borders. The right of the Palestinian people to self-determination was still not fully recognised. And there was acceptance that the primary legal regime governing the conflict concerns the treaties, the pre-existing rights that had been granted to Israel. Now, all that changed in 73. We now, first of all, for the first time, had a common European policy. For the first time, Israel was required to withdraw completely to the 49 armistice lines. For the first time, these lines are recognized as borders. And very importantly, the PLO comes into the picture to replace Syria, Egypt, and Jordan as Israel's counterparts. Israel is no longer negotiating with its neighbors. It has to negotiate with a people that is represented by a terrorist organization. This is also a fundamental change after 73. And the legal regime, instead of being the rights of treaties, the right of the mandates, the right of under the League of Nations, has become the rights of international human rights law. So people, when talk now, what is the legal regime governing the West Bank? It's human rights. It's Palestinian human rights. And Europe is relying on international law to justify its policy. And we'll come back to that. There is a serious question whether indeed international law does require this new policy. So to conclude, I think what we have here is Europe's gone thrown out the baby with the bathwater, if you like. It's thrown out the existing rights and obligations which had been created prior to 1948 and replaced it with the new international law of human rights and international humanitarian law which developed after the Second World War. And I think the question is, how can a balance be achieved again where, yes, we expect and we respect the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination. There must be a resolution of the Palestinian refugee problem. At the same time, this needs to be balanced against Israel's pre-existing interests and its right to negotiate secure and recognised borders. And I think this is the challenge for the European Union now, which it's failed to achieve in the guidelines, as we'll speak about in a moment. Thank you.